So greetings from your sister congregation in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, right outside Knoxville. As far away as we live from each other, through the miracle of the internet, I've been following you and getting to know you over these last few years, and so glad to meet you in person. You inspire me and give me hope and remind me what a congregation can be about when it is alive with passion and purpose. So thank you for that ministry, not only to your community, but to some of us out there who are needing to be reminded it is possible. I wanted to start this morning by telling a story from the time when I was a chaplain in the Army Reserves. There was a day I was in my office and I was working away on the endless paperwork. Anybody here know about that paperwork? Yes. So I was working on the paperwork and a soldier came into my office, closed the door, and just started sobbing, just fell apart. This was somebody who had seen multiple tours in Afghanistan, and they kept sending him back, throwing him right into the very worst of it. But now he was back home in Tennessee, trying to put a life together best as he could, trying to go to school, trying to save money, trying to maybe meet somebody who he could settle down with. He had a plan for what normal could look like on this side of life. But now in my office, he was just sobbing. He told the story that a few days before that, before drill, he had come across a roadside emergency, a car crash on a highway, and he had pulled over and had tended to the situation, managed the situation, and had tended to the driver of one of the cars and cradled the man's head in his lap as he had died. And I said in response, "It's so hard to watch someone die." And he said, "That's not it. That's not it. That's not what was so hard." He said, "I've been driving around every night ever since then, for the last few nights, hoping to find another accident. It's the only time," he said, "since I've been back from Afghanistan that I felt like I had any purpose, that I knew what to do." In his life back home, he was trying to rebuild. He was trying to keep his eye on the prize and that far distant horizon, but the trauma of combat had wired his brain for vigilance. It was like he needed a crisis, a shot of adrenaline to feel alive. And maybe somebody here knows something about what it's like to be trying to live that long haul life. Maybe you're on the journey of sustaining your marriage, or maybe you're trying to stay sober one day at a time, or maybe you've gone back to school after a long time away, or you've just been chipping away at that big dream that means you got to keep going month after month, year after year, just trying to follow the arc of what they call that well-lived life. In June, I saw a video interview with a 96-year-old retired Mennonite pastor. And in this video, he was talking about his imminent death. And he was so clear and so calm and so wise and so generous. And I got that vision. I said, that's what I'm aiming for in my life. I don't know if I'm going to live to be 96, but I'm aiming for that clarity and that courage and that presence. So each of us probably has our own long-term goals, and maybe we've even been trying to pursue them, staggering forth the best we can, but then we get tired, or we get scared, or we get bored, or lose hope. And then, like an accident on the side of the road, here comes disruption. Or like somebody handing us a drink after 3 months sober, here comes temptation, or here comes boredom, or here comes fear or stress. Here we are in the middle of this long-haul effort, and something happens and we just get knocked off course. And the crisis of right here, right now takes over. Or the dream seems so far away, or so out of reach that we just kind of give up and find ourselves seeking something that will give us the boost we've been craving inside. And this is what I think of when I hear that story about the golden calf. I mean, think about it. It's not like life was any good back there in Egypt. But at least it was predictable. You knew what you were waking up to in the morning. And now Moses has you out here in the wilderness with those cold desert nights, and sometimes you wonder if he even knows where he's going, or if your people are ever going to get there to the promised land. And there comes this one night, and Moses has wandered off somewhere, they say up a mountain, and you and your friends, all the people of God, are trying to keep warm by a fire, and boredom sets in, maybe tinged with despair. And you think, we've been trying to follow the Lord our God for so long, and just where has it gotten us? What has this relationship ever done for us except to dump us out here in the desert, shivering cold and most probably lost? Somebody makes a suggestion, later on nobody can remember just who it was, that it might be pretty nice right about now to have your own little God, your own right here, right now God, one you can see and touch right here around the fire. And other people begin to murmur and say, yeah, that might be nice. So you pull Aaron into it, Moses' brother, and he's game, and the next thing you know, everybody's just lost their minds. And you've melted down all your jewelry. So Aaron can make a statue of a golden calf. And you're dancing around it, and it feels so good. Finally, right here, you think to yourself, this is what I've been needing. After all that wandering around in the desert, following a God and a promise that may or may not be realized in my lifetime, this golden calf isn't half bad, you say. And looking around the fire, you think, well, there must be something to it. After all, everybody else is dancing around. I don't know about you, but I can really relate to those people dancing around that golden calf, getting that fix, that shot of adrenaline. For those of us engaged in some long-haul effort, some long-haul journey, on some effort that's going to take years to realize, we understand. And what if the goal is much farther off than some time later in our own lives? What if the promised land isn't even right now out there on the horizon so we can see? A few years ago, the Discovery Channel did a series of shows about Hawaii and told the story about how Hawaii was discovered by humans over 1,000 years ago. Before that, it was unpopulated, uninhabited by humans. And the story starts thousands of miles due south of Hawaii on the Marquesas Islands. Has anybody here heard of the Marquesas Islands? I had not. Okay. Some geographers are in the room. But the rest of us, yeah, very worldly. A lot of us have not heard of, okay? Right? Can I get an amen? All right. So, a lot of people have not heard of the Marquesas Islands. You can barely find it on a map. It's like a pinprick. You got to zoom in. And the people on the Marquesas Islands, and this is about 1,500 years ago, begin to notice that the northernmost islands, in their cluster of islands, the golden plover lands there, heading north, but does not build a nest. And that's significant, they say, because they know that the golden plover, this bird, must be flying north somewhere, and that there must be land farther north. As it turns out, the golden plover goes all the way in its migratory route up to Alaska. But they begin to chase the golden plover on the migratory route. They begin to follow it in their double-hulled, hand-carved canoes out on the ocean. Can you imagine? And so they set off from land, they begin to follow those birds. But if you've been in a boat and have seen birds, you know that birds fly a lot faster than a canoe on the ocean. And so they go for a while, paddling, and the birds disappear over the horizon. And they work out this thing as a people that the next year they're going to go to the place in the ocean where last year they left off. And then the next year they follow the golden plover just a little bit more, and again lose them on the distance. And then the next year they go out to that place, and a little bit more. 400 years. 400 years as a people in pursuit of land that may or may not be there. All those generations, lifetime after lifetime, in pursuit of this handed-down dream, this promise up ahead somewhere in the vast blue ocean, there must be land. And I'm not thinking of that first generation that first pushed off from shore And I'm not thinking of that last generation that finally spotted land on the horizon. I'm thinking about those generations, all those generations in the middle, the ones whose fate was every year to go out into the ocean to where they left off the year before and paddle a little ways until the birds flew out of sight. I'm thinking about the ones who knew in their lifetimes the progress from one little point in the vast blue ocean to another little point in the vast blue ocean. The generational tenacity, the grit, the pure faith, the trust not only in the generations before who came up with the idea that following the golden plover must have been a good idea, but in the generations to come, that they would finally reach land. I've been thinking that the old Discovery Channel series lately, because sometimes, some mornings, when I open up my web browser, it seems as if our generation is lost, like we're in the middle of the ocean with no land in sight. Here we are 241 years as a country into this experiment of democracy with all the blessings we've received, and it's like sometimes we just can't get it together. It's like we're a nation of prodigal sons who have received so much inheritance and we're just squandering it off in the muck with the pigs. Getting our right here, right now addiction needs met. Worshiping our tiny gods, all these golden calves. The golden calf of the iPhone, how we gaze at it with worshipful adoration. The golden calf of fake fights, how righteous we feel to tell somebody off. The golden calf of the flag or the national anthem, as if that's what people ever died and fought and died for, and not the people or ideals that make this nation great. Amen. We've been given so much, and yet here we are in the middle of the ocean, like we're bobbing with waves in a little hand-carved canoe, wondering if it's worth it, or if we should just turn back and give up. We should not give up. It is at this moment of doubt, this moment when fear or impatience or despair rises up, that it's we, as a people of faith, that it's like we've got something in our lives there on the wall that says, break glass in case of emergency. We've got something to turn to, you and I, to lean on, to draw from, and what we've got is a story. Now, next to an iPhone or a shot of cocaine or a boost of adrenaline you can get from some roadside accident, or a story might seem like a pretty lame consolation prize when you think about it. A story? Come on. And it's not even a story that's going to give you instructions that will spell it all out. This story is full of contradictions and these colorful characters that make you say, really? Follow him? Follow her? In the 1960s and 70s, another time when the world seemed like it was just going to fall apart, there were some theologians out of Yale Divinity School who said, you know, Christianity isn't about sifting out propositions or ideas or any list of rules. They said Christianity is about finding ourselves within a great and ongoing story. If you want to find a fancy word to drop at a party, these were narrative theologians. You can just kind of mumble that and then wander away. I've tried, it works. So one of these narrative theologians, Stanley Hauerwas, said that Christians were what he called story-formed people. I like that. Not people who are formed by rules or a list of what we should do and shouldn't do, but people who understand our lives in the light of a story, specifically the story of salvation for all of God's people and all of the earth. And it's not like we find ourselves in distress in the middle of the ocean, or in the middle of a desert night when our leader has gone away from us now, and the story is meant to comfort us, or soothe us, or numb us. What we've been given is no bedtime story. What we've been given is a story that tells us our purpose, longer even than our own lifetimes. Reinhold Niebuhr was a theologian working after the Second World War, and he said this, nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in our lifetime, therefore we must be saved by hope. Nothing which is true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we must be saved by faith. Nothing we do, he said, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we must be saved by love. In your family, in this congregation, in this community, in this nation, throughout the whole world, your life is precious not because of your money, not because of your degree or your title. Your life is precious not because of anything other than that you are a vital part in the story of God's salvation of all the earth. You are beloved and chosen. You are cherished and blessed with the invitation to step into that greatness which comes not from you, but which your life can reflect. when you understand yourself as part of a story whose fulfillment might lie beyond the horizon of your own mortal lifetime. So I don't know where life finds you this morning, at what point on your journey. Before showing up here, you might have gotten into a fight with your family or your neighbor across the street. You might have had some tears about the bills or the debt that's been crushing you. Or maybe you're facing a health crisis that you haven't told anybody about yet. Or you're wondering if you can forgive somebody, or maybe if somebody's going to forgive you. Maybe it's gotten so bad that you've found yourself turning to some short-term boost, to some golden calf, to something that gives you right now satisfaction. But something, out of all of that, something this morning made you show up here. Call it old habit, or an inkling, or call it the tug of God's call on your heart. Because if the world out there has told you your life is a story of get rich quick or die trying, our God, the Eternal, tells the story that your life contains worth far beyond any measure. And if the world out there has told you that your life is a story where you need to pick between shouting voices on the left or the right, our God tells the story that we have before us, the choice between life and death, that the challenge we face is not a matter of left or right, but of right and wrong, and we all get there together. Amen. If the world out there has told you the story that might makes right, our God tells a story of suffering transformed into joy, of how no cross and no empire can ever put love to death. Our God tells the story of when we were down in the ditch one day, robbed and beaten on the road to Jericho, and it wasn't the ones we expected who saved us, but it was some broken soldier back from Afghanistan. And he held us so tenderly. And another time on that Jericho road when it was we who leaned down to pull our enemy right out of the ditch. Yes, the road can be long and the nights can be dark, but love has designed us and fashioned us for the long haul, for the kingdom on earth that will come, if not in our lifetimes, then for those yet to come, whose joy we now prepare. So in our times of doubt, of despair, let us turn to the story of love and let it work on our hearts. Let us forsake the claims of this world of fear on our lives and give ourselves over to the story of God, which is the story of outrageous and generous love, and which is far from over this morning in your life, with so much more to be told, until the world fills with joy and it is well with every last soul.